for English in Quito, Ecuador. I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. We start with some breaking news. A powerful magnitude 6.3 earthquake has just shaken Venezuela. Buildings were reportedly evacuated in Caracas following the earthquake, which occurred just after 5:30 p.m. Caracas time.
Quédense quieta.
Y nadie salió de los edificios, no entiendo por qué. No, por allá se oye.
Strong vibrations rattled cars, buildings, and caused immediate structural damage and widespread concern in the strongest tremors to hit the island for years. A gym in Trinidad collapsed as a crowd gathered in the streets following the aftershocks.
What in the... Oh my God. Yeah, watch where you're standing to her.
I don't want to stand up here. No.
The quake was felt at least as far as St. Lucia. More stories now. Thousands of Venezuelans are out on the streets in droves Tuesday supporting President Nicolás Maduro and the new economic measures and currency that took effect from Monday. A massive demonstration marched through the streets and gathered to hear President of the Constituent National Assembly address the crowds. Diosdado Cabello assured those present that this is a new dawn for Venezuela and condemned the opposition for trying to create a divide among the people at a time of economic recovery. People have been withdrawing cash from ATMs for the first time in months. The new sovereign Bolivar currency came out in circulation on Monday. The government axed 5 zeros of the old currency and issued new banknotes. It's an attempt to curb hyperinflation. The sovereign Bolivar is anchored to the country's digital currency, the petro. Each petro is worth $60. This is based on the price of a barrel of Venezuelan oil that corresponds to 3,600 sovereign bolivars.
I'm getting the first ones. These are my first sovereign bolivars banknotes. 2 bolivars is the equivalent to 200,000 bolivars. 5 is equal to 500,000.
The hope we all have is that the new banknotes will start to circulate along with some from the 1,000 Bolivar banknote to that of 100,000.
The priority of the new monetary system is to protect and provide fair prices. This was highlighted by Vice President Delcy Rodriguez.
The right prices will be published, and those prices must be respected. All the institutions of the Venezuelan state will enforce those prices, but also the citizens should help, through the social controller, to defend the prices in this program of economic recovery.
Some hope the changes mean the country will live a new economic era.
This is a progressive advancement to economic recovery. It is an issue of sovereignty. These measures are being taken without the IMF's participation, so it is a measure for the protection of the Venezuelan people logically. It kills the parallel dollar which was stipulating the prices. It also protects the worker's salary for the protection of the worker, as well as their social benefits.
The government activated a toll-free line to report price modifications.
We have to work from now on to denounce all the things that we see that aren't within the regulations. We're going to start implementing this in all businesses and establishments.
Starting on September 7, the first payment of the national minimum wage linked to the petro will be paid. A bet of the national government to national prosperity.
The recent assassination attempt against Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro was one of the most critical attacks the nation has suffered. But the government keeps fighting destabilization attempts. Here's part 3 of Venezuela in the crosshairs.
A simple glance at some headlines may seem harmless, but looking deeper, shocking statements are found.
I was called into a meeting. I was told, we are killing Maduro with drones.
Mainstream media has been trying to manipulate the attack. The assassination attempt was aimed at putting an end to President Maduro's life and his government.
It is an insult to the truth. They say alleged incident. It was an attempt to murder.
Mainstream media has rejected the evidence shown during the investigation. They do not even acknowledge confessions, behavior that opens a debate on propaganda war.
These media outlets use quotes. They say alleged. They want to imply that Venezuela's statements may be fake, and what they want is to discredit Maduro's government. They discredit the government's information, and for that reason we are talking about censorship.
We are
not stupid. Maduro is not going to leave the office on his own. The use of force is required.
There is violence when they reject the other because of ideological differences. It is the rejection of the ones that think differently. They don't even want to listen. They just want to destroy that political framework.
Mainstream media's approach towards Venezuela has been biased. However, the Venezuelan government does not deny facts when this kind of attack occurs in other countries.
Residents in the Brazilian border town of Paracaima have paraded for peace after attacks on Venezuelan migrants. A convoy with white flags and balloons marched in support of human rights. Residents in the area also denied accusations that they are xenophobic. Brazil sent troops to its border with Venezuela after the incident.
These are movements in favor of peace, of the well-being of our town, of the Brazilian and Venezuelan people. May they live in peace without violating each other's rights.
Paul Manafort, the U.S. President Donald Trump's former campaign manager, has been found guilty of 8 financial crimes in the first trial victory of the special counsel investigation into the president's associates. A judge declared a mistrial on 10 other counts the jury could not agree on. The jury returned the decision on Tuesday after deliberating for days on the charges of tax evasion and bank fraud against the former Trump campaign chairman. The outcome almost certainly guarantees years of prison for Manafort. President Donald Trump's former personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, has pleaded guilty to tax fraud, campaign finance violations, and bank fraud in the federal court in New York. Cohen pleaded guilty to 5 counts of tax fraud, 1 count of making false statements to a financial institution, 1 count of willfully causing an unlawful corporate campaign contribution, and 1 count of making an excessive campaign contribution. Brazil Foreign Relations Minister says his country will support a redesign of the Union of the South American Nations, UNASUR. He made the announcement during an official visit to Bolivia.
The foreign ministry delegations for Brazil and Bolivia discussed a wide range of bilateral agenda, including a mega construction project of the Interoceanic Corridor to link the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans.
We are talking about mega projects as the Interoceanic Corridor that is under discussion. Also, gas topics and urea are significant topics. We are experiencing a good phase in the bilateral relations with Brazil.
The Foreign Ministry of Brazil, Aloysio Núñez Ferreira, also extended his support for the restructuring of the South American Nations Union, or UNASUR, as many of its members decided not to be part of this integration institute.
Brazil is committed to maintain this integration system. We are attached to the UNASUR existence for a number of reasons and issues. It highlights such as health, regional integration, aviation, offshore crimes, border security, etc.
Crisis in UNASUR started this year just when Bolivia took the pro-tempore presidency.
We have to seek for dialogue, still in the frame of UNASUR, so that we can overcome the political impasses that are blocking its operation and save the institution, to boost it, to direct it in a more accurate way with practical issues that are interesting for the lives of our people, and separate the ideological differences between different state actors.
The South American Union took its name in 2007. It is supported by 20 countries, out of which 6 member nations, Paraguay, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Peru, announced their disassociation in April. In September, the foreign ministers of the member countries are set to meet in Paraguay.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on innovation, conservation, human well-being, and human rights. Keep up to date on the latest innovations in science and technology with At the Moon. The habits and knowledge you need to live a healthy lifestyle are on Guide Your Body. Environmental consciousness is required to preserve our Earth. Undergo your transformation on Green Zone. We defend the struggles of peoples in resistance fighting for their rights. Between Borders. All about equity, diversity, and respect for identities on By Gender. Every day we feature a wide variety of content. Only on Telesur, the news source from Latin America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. An indigenous leader in the state of Nariño has been murdered as killings of social leaders in Colombia continue. Holmes Alberto Nisque, member of the Agua nationality and secretary of protection of El Gran Rosario, was killed 200 feet from a police station. The crime took place on Sunday on the Pacific coast, just days before the indigenous leader had called the Colombian Protection Unit asking for help. They are responsible for social leader safety. This is the 149th murder of a social leader or activist in Colombia this year. Let's go to other stories now. In Chile, dozens of people have held a vigil to demand justice be served to perpetrators of sexual abuse in Chile.
Colombia has a new controller, Carlos Felipe Córdoba. He won a total of 203 votes in between the Senate and the Chamber. The controller received the support of the Liberal Party, the Conservative Party, the Social Party of National Unity, and Cambio Radical Party, and at the last minute of Centro Democrático. Centro Democrático had a candidate of their own, José Félix Lafaurí, president of the National Federation of Livestock of Colombia, who won just 11 votes in both the Senate and the Chamber. A meeting was held in mid-August between former President Álvaro Uribe, César Gaviria, and Andrés Pastrana, where the comptroller duties were decided. Corruption is one of the most important points to be addressed. The comptroller has made various complaints about embezzlement and ecological issues. Another fundamental topic is scheduled to be addressed on August 26th, regarding support for the anti-corruption referendum. Several parties already support this, but Centro Democrático has refused on the grounds that it isn't necessary.
That was José Manuel Jiménez from Colombia. And now to Chile, where dozens of people have held a vigil to demand justice be served. Other stories now, right-wing sectors in Argentina have called for a march against former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner as the Senate is about to discuss her immunity. Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Edgardo Esteban, explains.
A march is scheduled outside Congress as part of the campaign against former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner. They want Fernández's immunity as senator to be removed. The upper house will also discuss tomorrow the possibility of new raids at Fernández's home here in the Argentine capital. It's part of the corruption investigation promoted by what some say are allied sectors in the judiciary judiciary and Mauricio Macri's government. This would be part of a campaign to attack and discredit the former president.
The executive, along with the judiciary and some media corporations, keep attacking the main contender for next year's presidential elections, trying to take her out of the electoral race.
They're doing this not only against Cristina de Kirchner, but against all Argentinian people, because the persecution against her has also reached unions and social leaders and the media. This is against a wider group of people. It is evident with Cristina because of all the defamation campaigns against her. There's still a wide group of people that support her. We can build a national movement with that to make her win the 2019 elections.
For National Congress member Leopoldo Morillo, there is no chance that the ex-president will go to prison because there is no evidence to link her with corruption cases.
I think there was going to be a strong reaction from the Argentine people, especially in the midst of this complex socio-economic situation that we're living in, which is very dangerous. There is great support for Cristina from popular sectors. I think that a prison sentence would be a big mistake.
For some sectors of Argentina's government, Macri's period is ending. The working class, which is being deeply affected by his policies, thinks that the alleged corruption cases have only one goal:
to hide everything they do in government. Now is basically trying to hide the reality of what we, the workers' sector, live every day.
Without the rule of law, this new chapter of Argentina's history will be managed by the political leaders, media, and judiciary.
Researchers have warned that the intensity of the weather systems will be even greater due to climate change. This global phenomenon is largely felt in Central America, especially in Costa Rica, where higher mid-year rainfall levels have already had a greater impact. Over the last few years, the severe consequences of climate change have been felt in the region like never before. Researcher Luis Fernando Alvarado has carefully studied these shifts.
Costa Rica had a history of being directly affected by hurricanes, but in 2016, the country was hard hit and suffered severe damage. It was the first hurricane that deeply affected us in hundreds of years.
Heavy rains have caused widespread flooding and destruction in Costa Rica. Government disaster agencies were on the ground responding to emergencies. Nonetheless, the president resolved to rectify this problem.
The climate change situation is here to stay. We must deal with it, and I'm not talking about temporary solutions or last-minute responses. We must get to the core of the issue and solve it. If you notice, this has been happening for some time.
The National Meteorology Institute has warned to brace for more disasters ahead, apart from the 29 tropical storms which have already impacted the country since the hurricane season started on June 1st.
Climate change will worsen the normal conditions of our country. It will make it rain heavier in rainy areas like Limón, or will dry out hotter zones like Guanacaste.
Researchers recommend that long-term public policies are implemented to prevent a recurrence of the problem.
We are talking about astounding changes for the end of the century, but we can act now to reduce the consequences of climate change.
Adapting to climate change requires serious commitment and delivery from the government, but also from the people, because they will be the most affected in the coming years. In Grenada, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell is preparing for the 2018-2019 budget by holding several stakeholder meetings. The Prime Minister says he expects the country's economy to grow.
Our media economic review and estimated 2018 performance compiled by the Ministry of Finance shows that the Grenada economy will continue on along a positive trajectory. The projected growth is 3.5%, but it could very well exceed that based on the figures we already seen so far this year.
We'll take a short break now, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Earth. Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Turkey has filed a complaint against Washington's additional import duties on its steel and aluminum goods. At the World Trade Organization, Turkey claims that the measures imposed are in breach of Institute's agreement of trade safeguards. Both countries need to reach an agreement within 60 days of the complaint. Kabul is on red alert after rockets were fired during the president's speech in Afghanistan. Rockets hit as Ashraf Ghani addressed the nation to mark the beginning of Eid al-Adha, the Muslim festival of sacrifice. 2 security officials were injured in the attack. Authorities say the Taliban are responsible. They had rejected a ceasefire proposal on Monday, vowing to continue their attacks. 177 migrants are still on board the Diciotti rescue ship because they don't have permission to disembark. The ship docked in the Sicilian port of Catania last Monday. The migrants remain in limbo until far-right Italian Interior Minister Matteo Salvini is assured they'll be relocated elsewhere in Europe. Until then, Salvini is refusing to allow them entry into Italy. A recent poll has exposed the high level of distrust the British public have towards their media. Pablo Navarrete reports from London.
According to a poll by the European Broadcast Union published earlier this year, the United Kingdom is second in Europe after Malta in terms of public distrust of the media. 52% of the British population has low confidence or mistrust in the media, and 73% of the public distrust the written press.
Most people in this country, as for instance, didn't vote for this government at the last election. Over 60% of the electorate didn't vote for this government. However, most of this country's press are supporters of this government. The press aren't where their customers are.
Public distrust towards the internet and social media is also high. According to the poll, 65% of people tend not to trust information found on the web, and 73% don't trust social media information. The recent Facebook scandal over user privacy is unlikely to improve trust levels.
You've seen a very different reaction in the new media companies to the old media. The new media companies you see taking it seriously, they're talking about it. Facebook is an example, they keep talking about what's their action plan, what they're doing to get trust back. Old media, the print media, you hear nothing.
Corporate control of traditional media outlets worries many. For example, 5 billionaires own 80% of the British press, and the BBC is increasingly being criticised for showing anti-left-wing bias.
It's clear the UK public no longer trusts the British media. That is because the UK press fails to stand up to the interests of the wealthy and the powerful. We need a media, a quality independent media, that stands up for what people need and against those interests. That media needs supporting and funding.
The growth of an independent media movement is one of the results of the distrust the British public have in their media. While political debate becomes increasingly polarised, it will be difficult in the short term to reverse this distrust. Pablo Navarrete, Telesur, London.
And now let's take a look at some other news from around the world.
The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has confirmed that thousands of displaced Syrian families have returned home, with the number dropping to around 57,000. The news comes as the Syrian government has regained most of the territory in the southwest of the country. However, the need for humanitarian assistance continues. Police in Uganda have used live rounds and tear gas to disperse protesters amid growing political unrest over the treatment of opposition figures, including local pop star turned politician Bobi Wine, who is a government critic. One person has been killed and 5 others injured in the crackdown, and around 45 arrested so far. Tensions have been mounting since legislators were arrested for campaigning in a by-election last week. Protesters say the government is repressing opposition.
What have we done? They are here telling us we are using orders from above. Who above? That is the very order they used when they damaged Bobi Wine. Bobi Wine was damaged beyond recognition. The president is there telling us that Bobi Wine shot his vehicle with bullets. When?
Iran's first homemade fighter jet, named Kosar, has completed its first test run. Kosar was unveiled in a ceremony on Defense Industry Day attended by President Hassan Rouhani. Iran exclusively developed the avionics and a fire control system, making them one of the few countries with the skills to do so. Future models will have training and fighting capabilities.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Stefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.